Okay, we know when to use a reflexive verb. We know that generally the action is performed by the subject on itself. Now in some cases we know that there can be a direct object after the verb, but generally even then whatever the direct object is, the hair, the teeth, se brosser les cheveux, se brosser les dents, it always goes back to this action always goes back to the subject. So wherever it falls, if it falls on les cheveux ou les dents, it's still going to go back to the subject. The action always has something to do with the subject. The subject performs the action, receives the action. The verb has a reflexive pronoun, and that's something that we don't see in ordinary conjugations, but in a reflexive verb there is always a reflexive pronoun, and that's how you identify it in the infinitive, because se will precede the infinitive. The subject and the object pronoun refer to the same thing. For example, he hurt himself, or she has taken a bath, and that refers to herself. The reflexive pronoun is placed directly in front of the verb. Now sometimes the subject will come after in the situation where there's a question, but almost always it will be subject, reflexive pronoun, and then verb. That is the standard position in a reflexive sentence. So the reflexive pronoun usually precedes the verb. Il is your subject, se is your reflexive pronoun, and rêver is your conjugated verb form. Je me lave. Lave is the conjugated verb form, refers back to je, which is done by je. Reflexive pronouns me, te, se, nous, vous, ce. And notice that nous and vous look just like the subject, so remember, when you have a sentence that is ourselves, yourself, or yourselves, nous will be repeated, vous will be repeated. The first one is the subject, the second one is the reflexive pronoun. So nous, vous, vous. So in the present tense we have je me lave. You have subject, reflexive pronoun, conjugated verb form. Tu te laves, il se ou elle se lave, nous nous lavons, vous vous lavez, and il or elle se lave. That's the same as any normal conjugation, in this case an ER verb, present tense. Now the passe composé is a little bit different. The passe composé, you have the subject, so forth, and then you have the reflexive pronoun, and so forth. And then remember that the passe composé has two parts. So in this case it's suis lavé. Je me suis lavé. And notice that verbs that are reflexive are conjugated with être in the passe composé. So je me suis lavé. And then the next thing to remember, after remembering that verbs that are reflexive in the passe composé are conjugated with être. Always have your reflexive pronoun, and that's going to precede the auxiliary. The next important thing is to know that just like those verbs that were conjugated with être, for example, the verbs of motion, going up, going down, going out, coming in, all those verbs that were conjugated with être, also the past participle agreed with the subject. In this case, the past participle actually agrees with the preceding reflexive pronoun. Now, in most cases, that is going to be a direct object, and it refers to je, or tu, or il, or elle, and so forth. In some cases, you will have one situation, we'll get to that later, where there will be a direct object other than the me, in which case there is no agreement. But for 99% of the cases, this past participle will be the same as this reflexive pronoun, which is equal to that subject. So in the case of je me suis lavé, lavé is your masculine singular form. If a girl is speaking, then we're going to add that other E. Tu t'es lavé, if I speak to a boy, I add nothing. If I speak to a girl, I have to add that E. Il se lavé has no option other than the masculine singular form. Elle s'est lavée has no other option other than that E. It's not optional, so it's not going to be in parentheses. Nous nous sommes lavés, that is optional, ES if it's boys, and ES if it's girls. ES if it's boys and girls also. Vous vous êtes lavés. Now remember, vous can be singular, plural, masculine, feminine. So we have four options here: masculine singular, masculine plural, feminine singular, feminine plural. We have to know if vous refers to a boy, singular, refers to two boys or two girls or more than two. If the vous refers to a woman, formal form, it's going to have an E at the end of lavé, and if I'm speaking to two girls, I'll have ES at the end. Ils se sont lavés, once again, I only have one option there because it has to have an S, it's plural. This has to have an ES because it's feminine plural. So if I want to write any of these sentences in the negative form, there's one easy thing to remember. The reflexive pronoun and the conjugated verb are never separated. So we know that ne precedes a verb, pas comes after the verb. In the case of a reflexive verb, because the reflexive pronoun and the verb cannot be separated, I just push the ne over here, and again the pas is going to come after the verb. So, ils ne s'amusent pas, ils ne se sont pas amusés. In this case, the se and the auxiliary verb are not separated. So I put ne in front of that, and I put pas after that, and then my past participle is over here. In the case of one verb, se precedes the conjugated verb form ne, then is pushed over one, and then pas after. Ils ne se sont pas amusés, it's the auxiliary verb that is made negative with the se still coming right before the auxiliary. So some extra vocabulary that you might need for reflexive verbs are as follows. Se raser, to shave oneself. Se réveiller, to wake up. Now we'll get to these later, the ones that have, for example, se brosser les cheveux, se brosser les dents. These actually will be direct objects after the verb, and we'll get to those in another lesson where the auxiliary will still be used, will still be être, the reflexive pronoun will still be used, but the past participle will not change because now we have something after it. So when I have something after the reflexive verb, it's a direct object, then when I conjugate this, the past participle will not agree. It will simply be just the one form of the past participle.